Hi, with Julian on the Brown Note and a review of Parannoul and After the Magic. I've just found out it's their third album. So I got their second album thinking it was their debut, To See the Next Part of the Dream from 2021, which was an astonishing album, but I've just found out that there's Let's Walk on the Path of a Blue Cat from 2020, which I know nothing about, and a split release, Downfall of the Neon Youth, that came out in 2021 as well. So they made big waves with the second album, To See the Next Part of the Dream. It got pigeonholed as shoegaze, which is very trendy. I'm an old shoegaze head from the early 90s, but also very maximal, like M83 and dream pop as well, and emo, very sort of yearning vocals and very melodic as well. It was a stunning album, but also the fact that they're allegedly basically an anonymous bedroom artist in South Korea put all the music together themselves, a lot of it using computers, and yeah, it really put them on the map. And they're still anonymous, no one really knows much about them, even though they collaborate with other artists. After the Magic has just come out. Again, you can get this on Bandcamp, which is a really good one-stop shop for music. As you know, the music's going to the person, and it's a stunner. It's pretty much building on everything from the first album, though there is less and less shoegaze here. The opener, Polaris, showcases one of the main additions, I feel, to the music of Parannoul, which is it's got sort of almost John Mellencamp, big, bright, either clean guitar or acoustic guitar, which acoustic guitar happens a lot in this album. And around the halfway stage, it just explodes into this maximalist, huge M83 circa 10 years ago, when they were doing their EDM phase. Very huge, very epic, and very melodic, all things that exist across this whole album. Insomnia, the second track, has blast beats, almost blast beats, but it's a much softer song, and one of the few that I would actually pigeonhole as either dream pop or shoegaze. Arrival, another thing that the album flirts with a lot is the introduction of things like strings, violins, piano a little bit in the background, and on this track horns as well. It's got a really churning midsection, which bizarrely reminded me of, is it Politics by Coldplay, which is a brilliant track that opened A Rush of Blood to the Head. A superb opening track, and it's got that churning, and it goes for 8 minutes, and the next, I think, 3 songs in a row go for about 7.5 minutes. Car Seat Headrest, this is a band that I really feel relatable here, because when Car Seat Headrest really did hit big a few years back with a couple of Immortal albums, there were so many tracks that just went on for so long, and this is a very ambitious album. We Shine at Night, another 7-minute track. It's almost got this 90s alt rock vibe, probably the biggest chorus on the album. And even like the last third of it reminds me a little bit of Flaming Lips' Soft Bulletin era. Parade, 7.5 minutes, has got a little bit of country fiddle going on. That's more of a multi-part track song where each element doesn't necessarily sound like it is just part of the same song. It almost feels like miniature songs. There's a huge rolling beat on Sketchbook, and a really nice acoustic coda this time. Kind of felt like the music Bon Iver were doing on their second album, where everything sounded just like the soundstage was so big. Gentle, woolly melodies are quite common on this album. On track 7, Imagination. And again, Sound Inside Me, track 8, has there's a surprising amount of acoustic guitar strum. I know that the artist has been revealed to make much of that wall of guitar sound is actually computer noise, is computer generated instruments, which I suspect their drums are a lot as well. There's a lot of obviously clean played acoustic guitar. On this album they're probably learning to play their instruments, and actually heard a bass guitar, which I'm not sure I'd heard before. Actually heard individual bass lines, and I think a female voice on that track. I think if there's one area that they are developing on Blossom, which is a great track, one of the best, it's that gated drum sound. I think alongside the guitars, the drums are obviously programmed, and I think on the first album that was more of a giveaway to it being a bedroom produced album, and maybe even mixed album. And here it branches out every now and again into slightly different sound of rhythms, and I think that's definitely a direction they want to pull in more. I love the screams that build up on the coda. The coda's really good on that track, leaving the human voices screaming. Could have done with a little bit more of that atonal, and it's often a very nicely melodic album, but I wouldn't have minded a bit more of stuff like that. And After the Magic, real come down track, even has some like Air Moon Safari synths going along, bubbling away in the background. So it's a great album. I think it builds on nearly everything the first album does, and it points to directions they can go in the future. And it still feels like there's a lot of mileage out of this project. I still feel like there are things that they can improve on a lot, but it's a hugely ambitious and successful album that often relies on very melodic rock music that isn't off-putting. It's actually a pretty accessible album, despite being sung in Korean all the way through, apart from the odd line I noticed here and there creeping in. Parannoul is definitely riding a high, and I wonder how long they can remain anonymous. But alongside, I think, the Fever Ray album, my second album of the year, I think, to get a 9 out of 10 for Parannoul and After the Magic.